Hello and welcome to our second session today at BPM Live 2019, the world's leading online BPM event. My name's Ian Hawkins. I'm the editor of the PEX Network, the very first port of call for any business or process leader who wants their organization to run smarter, smoother, and more profitably. PEX Network is a global community of 160,000 process professionals from every industry. So whether you're joining us for the first time or your 101st time, thank you very much for joining us today, and we wish you a very warm welcome. Now, before we start the session proper, a couple of quick bits of housekeeping. First of all, if you're on Twitter, you can follow us at #BPMLive. If you hear anything you think is great and you want to tweet it out, or you want to ask any questions on there or make any comments, #BPMLive is where you want to be. If you want to ask us a question here, you can contact me and the speakers at any time you like. Just type your question into the Q&A box and hit the submit button. We'll get your questions through here and we will ask them at the end of the session. And as I always say, don't panic. If we don't get to your question, I will pass them on to our speakers with your contact details so they can get to you offline. If you're calling in from the APAC region, you'll be automatically registered for our next event, which is BPM and RPA APAC. We'll be in touch with you with details of what's on that agenda and when the sessions are starting. You can also check the resource list on your page and you'll find a couple of goodies for you there. First of all, there's the PEX Report 2020, which we released yesterday. This is a free benchmarking report which you can download. It's got contributions from General Anne Dunwoody, Rene Carriol, Brenton Harder, Samantha Bureau-Johnson, among others. Basically, the cream of the crop when it comes to process excellence. It has all of the stats from the PEX Global Survey, interviews, articles about transformation, and how to thrive in a changing world. And it's only changing faster. So this is a vital piece of free information that's yours to download right now. You'll also find a link to OPEX Week, which is a major conference we're hosting in Orlando. You'll find an absolutely packed agenda there and the confirmed speakers and details on how to secure your place. Finally, a reminder that this session is being recorded, so you can watch it back whenever you like and share it with colleagues who you think would benefit from the content. Which brings us to today's session, how Grant Thornton is unlocking a 60% efficiency gain across processes. And I'm very happy to be joined today by a couple of speakers. We have William McCann, who is the IT manager from Grant Thornton, and Shay O'Connor, who's senior vice president from FlowForma. So I'm going to hand over to the guys now. The floor is yours, gentlemen.
Thank you, Ian. Shay here. I just wanted to thank everybody for showing up today because we really appreciate you tuning in and taking time out of your busy schedules to hear about how some of our customers of FlowForma have got on. And today we'll be talking with William McCann from Grant Thornton. He's the IT manager there. We have had a couple of webinars in the past dealing with customer feedback, etc., and they have been really marvelous because anybody listening really wants to hear, like from the horse's mouth, the relevancy of applying business process management, digital process automation across their environment, and to hear it from them directly as distinct from hearing it from ourselves. Now, with that in mind, we have just got a suite of questions that we're going to pose to William and get his feedback directly on those items. So, William, welcome today. And I just wanted to ask you a very quick sort of introduction question, and that is about your role and yourself and within Grant Thornton.
Thanks for introduction, Shay. So, as Shay says, my name is William McCann, and I'm an IT manager here in Grant Thornton in Dublin. Grant Thornton is a professional services body providing advisory, assurance and tax services, and a lot of our services apart from that. And Grant Thornton Ireland is part of Grant Thornton International Network. I've been working in Grant Thornton for the last 15 years, and over the last 10 years we've developed our internal intranet on SharePoint. We now support 1,400 plus users across 7 offices in Ireland. And as I say, I've been working on SharePoint the last 10 years from a front-end point of view, where we are looking at building either custom lists to handle queries from staff, or previously, before we moved into FlowForma, we had looked at BCP Power Forms and InfoPath Forms. for building processes for internal departments to see what we could do for.
Just on that, I mean, the Grant Thornton environment, you guys, I mean, particularly you're in the professional services space where time literally equals money in your case. So everybody is out there dealing with different clients all the time. So I can imagine, I mean, from your point of view, the whole initiative of making processes that would have been manual, etc., within your organization, digitizing those would have a heavy impact within the organization because you're so conscious of time, you know. So from our point of view, the Grant Thornton message sort of has a double message because, you know, time is of the essence for you guys. Now, I know every organization, time means a lot and it's something we can't buy. So making the most of yours means a hell of a lot. I mean, it's a pretty heavy remit from your point of view to take charge of something like that and to identify those areas within the organization that you feel need attention. And sort of with that in mind, what were the pain points that motivated you to look for an automation tool?
Well, there was a number of pain points in regards to what each department was doing and what the department needs. Like one of the main points was the manual processes where you had a paper trail of requests coming in and it all being done on paper. And as anyone knows, when you have paper on a desk, it can lead to a number of different problems. Bottlenecks when people are off and you can't assign to somebody else. Lack of visibility when a process is being driven and we don't know exactly where it is. Where is that form? Whose desk is it on? And you having to send around emails chasing things like that there. And very poor reporting. With everything paper-based, it was one of our issues in a number of different forums what we've created since. Reporting was a key aspect of what they're looking to get out of it, apart from a slicker process. The the reporting was key, and it also cut it down on excessive paperwork. And because we are in 7 different offices, it now means everything is online and accessible by everyone at all time. So that was the main. That was the main pain point.
On that distributed workforce area, I mean, we have found that with other clients that have different in the one organization with different locations, that they can end up having their own ways of doing things. So, I mean, I presume that having a consistent way of doing it was also a good knock-on effect for you guys.
Very much so, Shay. When we are doing anything, it is always we focus on the whole firm and how can this benefit every office. So having a standard message to give to every office to say, here is the process, here's how you access it. It means staff can transfer between offices and know the process is the same. So it's a massive help.
We also, and to sort of knock on with that, and again, I don't know, hopefully you would have seen this as well, but we do get feedback that, you know, when new staff come in, and they are trying to get up to speed, the fact that your processes, now I know you don't have every process digitized, but with the ones that you have digitized, it's a lot easier for them to get up to speed on us because they don't even have to think who's involved in the next step. They just do their piece and they pass it on. Have you found that with new starters that they can do that? They can get up and running quickly on the digitized ones?
Definitely. When we build a flow, we'll usually do a video describing what the flow does and how to access it and the process. So we've gotten in the habit of doing that for every flow we do, just so people understand the process. and
Yeah.
he can easily jump into where he need, depending on what department and what tasks they have. He can jump into a part and know exactly what they're doing.
Super, yeah. It's funny, one client of ours had said before that when they digitize the processes, it actually not only, okay, you've got, I mean, we know the efficiency gains that it's going to get you, which is fantastic. And that's the main thrust of digitizing your processes and all the, the pain points that we've seen here, that you're trying to counteract all of those. But not only that, you're actually educating people in what's entailed in a process. So when they can see the steps in front of them, they know that, hey, when I submit this step, like there's 3 more or 4 more steps in this before this gets fully completed, instead of, knocking on your manager's door and going, hey, what happened to my request there? And someone has to go through all of these hoops. But was it a fact that educating is a nice byproduct, is what I'm trying to say. It's a nice byproduct of having something digitized, that you actually educate users that there's more to this than you would have perceived.
Definitely. One of the things we found, like we've been using FlowForma now for the last just over 3 years, and every time we go to a new flow, there's something added to it. There's more value add when creating the flows. The more staff learn what it can do, the more we're requesting, and the more we learn what we can provide to the staff as well. And because the staff are seeing it out and about and seeing what can be done, they're now coming with more requests saying, can you actually look at this for us as well? So it leads to more projects and more things being digitized because they see the capabilities of the product.
Yeah. And I'm presuming with that, and it's kind of, it harks onto a sort of a question we've been asked online about quantifying level of pain. I'm presuming that the feedback you get from the departments about the pain points is how you get to prioritize, well, what do we need to do next? I'm sure the business is basically knocking at your door going, hey, we need this and here's why.
Yeah, it all depends on which department is asking and the priority they have. We've seen in recent years a number of things we have brought online fits into legal requirements of the company as well, which greatly assists the departments. So having the forms centralized online where you can report on it, where you can show people this is a process, and this is what we follow. It's ideal for us.
Brilliant. Just on the next sort of official question, I know I'm bombarding you with questions at the moment, William, but I mean, there's more to come. What were your requirements when you for process automation tool, like when you started investigating all of this and started getting your requests and so on, the pain points are identified, you are sitting there and you're being told, listen, come up with a solution for us. What were your requirements?
Well, there was a number of requirements we were looking at. Ideally, use what we currently have. Grant Thornton is a Microsoft house, and we have a global license agreement, so we use SharePoint heavily internally. So it was looking at something which can we develop something in SharePoint ourselves, or is there an off-the-shelf package which does what we're looking at? And something that didn't require any coding was a key solution. Now, I've done a good bit of work on SharePoint custom lists, info path forms, and the amount of coding in the background and things like that they're required can be quite extensive. So we're looking for something which streamlined this process, which made it very simple to build the forms without the need of coding. And FlowForma fit the bill. We spoke to yourselves and got demos, and we took it from there. Yeah,
I remember back at the start, when you guys were investigating, etc., I mean, time would have been of the essence because here's a scenario where you want to get a solution going, but the last thing you want to do is have to go down a whole projects route and spend time, like a lot of time, trying to put together processes where you don't see any return for ages. So, I mean, I get the fact of not requiring any coding, but did you actually, when you had that as a criteria, did you feel you could come up with a solution on that?
Personally, ourselves, when we looked out there and looked internally, no coding internally was not an option. We didn't have a skill set. We looked at a number of solutions, and we were pleasantly surprised with FlowForma and how easy it is to use once you get used to a platform and its capabilities.
So it's funny because we would, so essentially when an organization is looking at digitizing their process, getting rid of their manual forms, etc., and improving efficiencies, there's a lot of, I want to say, misleading information out there. I mean, you're going to get a lot of, the internet accepts a lot of information, and there will be a lot of, platforms professing to be of a certain caliber, etc., that, oh, hey, listen, you can, any user can do this, etc. The whole no-code part of things, even though you can code in FlowForma if you wanted to, I presume that you never have. You've never had to.
No, I've done a small bit in CSS, but literally just a small bit. Most of what we do is what the application offers.
Yeah, so we have, with our customers across the globe, we did a survey of them all, and we found that 92% of them have literally never used code, have never even seen it. They wouldn't know what it even looked like except for it confusing them. And it was just to find out, from an audience point of view and from a customer base point of view, the impact of the no code element. As you say, it's a quite unique factor, and a lot of places profess it, but the fact that you could utilize your existing environment and get your no code elements to boot meant that obviously you didn't have to change your infrastructure or anything like that. It just sat on top of SharePoint, right?
Yeah, that was pretty much it. I think when we deployed FlowForma, we had recently just pushed on to SharePoint 2013. So it was the right time to bring in a new platform. As we were just saying, here's a new SharePoint 2013 environment, and here's an extra utility if you're looking for something.
Excellent. And of course, and then I was going to say the unfortunate thing, but the fortunate thing for you is that you end up then having to manage the whole environment because you can start producing the goods. But hey, we'll call that a good thing from your perspective, okay? That you have that extra level of responsibility now. Now, I just wanted to do a little pause here because Ian, has some poll question that he'd like to pose to the audience.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. It's a very straightforward question to the audience. What's important to you when selecting a process management tool? And you can select all of those that apply. There's three here. You can either have a tool that is intuitive, so it doesn't require coding, or unless you're one of the rare 8% of people that loves coding, or it has integration with Office 365, or it has the ability to engage external users. So you can choose 1, 2, 3, or none, I guess, of those. And you make your selection now. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to do that. So what's important to you when selecting a process management tool? Is it a tool that is intuitive and doesn't require coding? Is it integration with Office 365? Is it the ability to engage external users? I'm going to give you 5 more seconds to choose your option and then hit the submit button. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, let's have a look at the answers now. Okay, a tool that is intuitive has come out absolutely top of that with 77.5%. Integration with Office 365, that's 44, so we've got joint second here, and the ability to engage external users, both on 44.4%. I will hand back to you, Shay.
Thank you. That's interesting. And something that we'd like to see is the no coding element. A lot of people would say they have low code, where we have none. So just to get back to William, can you tell us just a little bit about the processes that Grant Thornton has automated? It's just to sort of add a level of precision for the audience so that they can get a look at what you've actually done so far.
Yeah. So one of the first flows we created was trainee job appraisals. And this is for our audit and assurance departments across the 7 offices. And what it is, it's a simple process. A trainee, when they go out to do audit at a client, they come back in and fill in the form to say how they get on their job. And there's a number of core responsibilities and attributes on the job for audit which you need to fill in, depending on what work you're doing. And that goes to a manager, and their manager updates it, gives feedback to trainee, and then it's filed in a report. And the report is used for a trainee progression system, a TPS, where a trainee is with GT for 3 years, and they have 7 levels where he can progress up the chain. And one of the interesting things about this is it's one of the first ones we take off very well, and it usually generates about 1,000 forms per year, as that's the number of clients we're going out to. And the managers have found that the feedback on it is phenomenal, as they're getting reports at a better timing. It can see more clarity on what's working and what's not working. After that, probably the biggest project to date is our client acceptance, and this is with our risk compliance and professional standards department, and this is where we onboard new clients. And we launched this. This is the first time we've actually brought FlowForma in to help with the project, just due to the complexity of it. And this client acceptance, the reason I call it a project instead of a flow is there is 10 flows what are being used within this one site to onboard clients both in Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. And then there's a number of child flows which are used for checks. So when a person puts in a request, risk have to do up to 5 different checks. So that's 5 child. That's 5 child flows where it can go to different departments to work on at the one time, and keep an overall view of where each request is at. And then once approved,
that sounds very core. That sounds really core. Like that's a deep impact one there, William, isn't it?
It's a massive impact. To give you an idea, we launched it in 2018, July, and since then we've on the site there's 16,000 forms being created. So generally there's about 4 or 5 per request. So you're talking over 3,000 requests for new client codes and things like that there. So it's been used heavily. Like that's pretty much over 1,000 forms per month.
We love to hear that, is because much now that you can sort of mop up, manual processes and so on, is when you have a process that has a deep impact on the business, like really fast. So in other words, the information that's gathered there is used pretty much immediately, I would have thought.
It is, and a client acceptance process ties into our time and billing application. So one of the main reasons for us is to create a client code in our time and billing, and that interacts with SQL in the background, and automatically generates a code in a different system. So that was paramount to the process. What we got this something which could do SQL integration and talk to different systems.
Brilliant,
brilliant. It's ideal.
Yeah, and I mean, we're always trying to profess that is that you should only ever have to enter in something once, because otherwise you're wasting time if you have to do it elsewhere a second time. So you've integrated this with your internal systems, which is class.
Yeah, it's been very well received, and it's pretty much once a request is approved, within a minute, it is on our time and billing system. So it is instantaneous, and staff really do like the efficiency of it. And then our requests, we have our operations departments, so finance, HR, IT, and facilities all have a number of different flows working. For example, in IT, we have new starters and leavers flows, where we track new staff coming in on board, and it just ties into a number of different systems. Like it ties into the creation of accounts, the creation of phone numbers in Skype for Business, and it ties into asset management. They say, here is a laptop we're giving the user. Okay, let's update asset management in the background. That's just a SharePoint list, but it ties into all the different systems we need it to. And again, that is also feeding into a database in the background to say what job's been complete and so on for reporting.
It's funny you say that about especially, say, for example, the IT leaver. So somebody is obviously leaving the organization. I know for a first-hand, I'm sure other people on the call here will know first-hand of individuals leaving organizations and still having their phone or still having a piece of equipment or their login is still valid a week later type thing, where you basically need this checklist. You need this list of, hey, when someone's going, these are the things we need to get back. Here we need to remove all of these access points. I mean, basically not leaving any stone unturned.
No, it's very useful. We have a process, and you have a number of checks. Like if you do it manually, you're always going to miss one or two checks. But if you have a form in front of you and say A, B, and C need to be done, you do A, B, and C before you progress.
Yeah. As I say, we've all come across what happens when you don't have something like that in place. Like, you're going to lose assets and you're going to leave exposures. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. There's bound to be a percentage of error.
Definitely. Like, as I say, I've been in the firm 15 years, and we've rolled this out in the last 3. And we were using a SharePoint list instead of a form. And there was just so many moving parts where on the one SharePoint list, it wasn't ideal because a lot could be done before an hour section. So now we've broken it down into different steps depending on what area we're looking at. Like, is it asset management, account deactivation, mobile phones returns, and things like that there. So it builds out the process for you and streamlines it.
And the nice thing is then, obviously, well, in your case, if things change, like as people's requirements change and moving forward and innovations, etc., you can just alter that lever, in this case, that lever process yourself, just to accommodate that, and the starter one. It's not a big deal for you to amend that to keep up to speed with the changes in your organization.
Definitely not. We've had a number of different flows where once you've had it up and running, they say, can you actually do A, B, and C as well? Or can we add in a question? And you go, of course we can. Just tell me what you need and we'll build it in. So I think it's been a learning experience from myself, getting up to speed with a product, and from staff using it and seeing their capabilities and going, actually, we could do something else as well here. So it's all feeding into what staff need and what they're learning they can do.
opens up the sort of possibilities. Yeah, very good. I won't labour the point on that too much longer, William. Just in regards then, moving on from what you've already put in place, I'm presuming, well, you have, I know there could be hundreds there, but what are your sort of immediate next plans for processes within Grant Thornton?
We have a number of different requests from both IT ourselves. We have a number of different flows we want to get up and running, and finance as well. Have a couple of quick ones, and then our favourite department, risk and compliance. We have two major projects coming on board, which is one of the projects is very exciting. That's letters of engagement. When we take on new clients, we have to send a letter of engagement out to a client for them to sign and come back. And there's a bit of complexity in the fact that we currently have 105 different types of letters of engagement, depending on the office, the service line, the department, and what's the requirements. So to build something like that there into a flow or a number of flows, depending on how we look at it, that's a major project coming up, which is very exciting. And the way we'll do that is we're going to do it with one service line first, audit and assurance, and iron out any kinks, see what we get it working successfully. And once we do, I have no doubt it will be a success. It will then be rolled out to every other department across the firm. And that will be a major win for IT in a sense. Because it will cut down time delays in getting printouts, updates, partner sign-off, and so on, because everything will be online.
Yeah, you've actually, I had a question for you, and you actually answered it anyway. I was going to ask you how you kicked it off, but you've described it perfectly. It's fantastic to see impactful processes that the organization can fully witness that it's having, what I would say, a change in methodology. But the reality is you're all doing the same work again. It's just really fast now, and it's really clear and clean, and you've now got visibility. And one thing that I didn't really tip on earlier on, but again, you being from IT would know that the data that you're collecting now has a great level of integrity to it, because you're in charge of putting validation instead of bringing things in from documents. And that data integrity, do you notice that means that the data is cleaner that's coming in?
Definitely. There's a number, as you say, you can use data validation. There's a number of different things we do depending on what flow we're looking at. So, like, for example, with client acceptance, when the staff are putting in information about the clients, like entity type, industry they're in, that's actually all being pulled from our practice management system, our time and billing. So it's actually pulling information to give them a drop-down list. So it's all correct when it feeds back into it.
Brilliant.
And it cuts down on mistakes being made by staff as the process is so linear and easy to follow.
Cool. Yeah, no, it to be honest, it's one of the common areas of improvement that kind of people don't recognize it. It's a real byproduct of digitizing things, that your data actually becomes a lot cleaner. Just moving on from there, your user adoption. So it's all very well, and we know the sort of the IT element of things. I have an IT background as well. But end users, when they are taking on the processes, so the user adoption, how is it achieved from your point of view?
It was achieved by a number of different aspects. One of the things was the fact that it was online. So, as I say, in the first one was job appraisals for trainees. They were able to go online and fill it out instead of having to print out type it up, print it off, sign it, and go and hand it to a manager after every time he did the job. What was happening there was they were waiting for 3 months and doing about 6 or 7 jobs at the time, which then led to a manager getting a raft of forms all at the one time to fill in for all the trainees they supported. So it's streamlined the process. The staff, when they seen it, the more flows we started using, the staff seen how easy it was to use, how slick the interface is. We're in the portal. We don't have to go anywhere else. We don't have to print stuff off. Any approval, it goes to a person we need it to go to. So once people started seeing the benefits and the capabilities, they started looking at their internal. And they started looking at their internal process and saying, what can we bring online ourselves? And there's been more and more requests coming in. So,
I mean, it's funny. It's sort of when you get these interfaces that's consistent, it means the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth process that come in, there's a familiarity built in automatically. That know, I say it helps everybody moving on. Just from a results point of view, now I know we sort of state that at the very start of the webinar, but from the results, you know what realized within Grant Thornton by applying digitized processes. I don't mean to harbour the point, but I think it's a really important statistic that you guys came up with about your improvements. So if you could just describe the results.
Yeah, well, it gives the departments, for whatever flow we create, it gives the departments an overall view of where things are at. Complete transparency. We know, like, for example, in the client acceptance, we know exactly how many open requests we have. We know where the bottlenecks were and how we can alleviate the bottlenecks by assigning staff and so on. They say, okay, we're getting a lot of requests here. We need to up our staff in this area. And the process is, like, we did say about 60%, and it's not far off the mark in the fact that it's all online. It's all easily accessible by everyone across the firm, so all 7 offices. So it has been a good impact using the flows.
Yeah, it's funny. So when we would ask clients about the sort of the impact, we get differing results. And what I mean by that is, when chatting to yourself, William, there's a percentage efficiency that kicks into your organization that is very impactful. And we've had a number of the organizations, thinking offhand, some of the European agencies that we deal with, where they look at a similar gauge in regards to percentage efficiency they gain. But we have other ones that have a different driver. So we would have a construction industry. They look for a monetary return on investment. So they basically go, listen, we have saved X amount of money, and they would go, this process used to cost us this because it was manual. Now it's digitized. We have saved X amount of money in that. And we deal also in the education sector where they deal on time saved, and that equals resources. So because they're sort of, I would say, they would be government backed, they try and get more out of what they have. So even though they have X number of staff, they need to try and get more out of them. So if you can save them tons of time, I mean, Abington and Whitney in the UK, they gave us a great stat that with only 7 processes, they'd saved 5,500 hours in a year, which was 2.5 staff. So the combination of all those, gains and those impacts, it means a lot from our point of view, from when we're trying to describe to anybody who's considering going down the digital transformation route, going down doing digital process automation, what they can get. And Will, I really appreciate you sharing those stats and sharing the background to sort of deciding on FlowForma. and how the impact of using it has grown within Grant Thornton, where you would have started with processes, but then got really high impactful processes. And as you say, the next one with the for risk and compliance, and that large project coming up is going to be really exciting from the impact point of view. And but thanks again, William, for all of that information and just literally being so honest about everything. At this stage, we would like to, we have, I think, some Q&A. We only have a few minutes, so William, if you'd hang on in case we have a question for you.
No problem at all.
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you, guys. I am going to go into those questions as quickly as I can so we get what we can done before we get to the bottom of the hour. So there's one here from Dr. Stebbings who says, this is specifically to Will, and it's about those pain points. How did you quantify the level of pain in your organization? Because everybody wants to know which bit should I be automating first. So what was it that how did you quantify the level of pain in your organization?
Well, quantifying of the pain was actually in the department's hands. So, for example, a risk came to us and says, here's a process, we've mapped it out. And when they mapped it out for themselves, they actually seen where the delays were, what was causing bottlenecks, what was causing the pain, and the slowness of the process. So, in our case, it was the department coming to us and saying, we need to get something online because of A, B, C. And it was, it was pretty much the department made the call on the pain.
Okay.
But that was mainly because we had good people who were able to map out the processes and say, okay, stop, we need to do something better here.
Okay. Shay, you've seen a lot of these projects up and running. How do you think people are measuring the level of pain and what they automate first?
Yeah, so just on that, and basically when I was looking at the ROIs from different organizations, there will be drivers behind different projects within a group. So, for example, in the construction industry, we deal a lot with road builders, etc., where they would be given a driver to save X amount of money on the next project. And the only way that they can do that is by identifying the slow areas that are delaying them, because time equals money in their case. They actually, in their case, they went and quantified how long things were taking and how much money that would cost from a staffing, employees, contractors point of view. And then when they brought in the process, they then did the same check, and they were able to quantify exactly how much they had saved and can report back then to the customer to say, listen, we have definitely saved X amount of money on this process alone, and move on from there. So it's a very valid question, because you have a lot of industries going, well, I just know we're inefficient. But if you then go in and look at each individual process, and from a step-by-step point of view, see the time that has taken, the delays that may have had an impact. In other words, if I can get something done quicker, it's not just that process is more efficient. The knock-on effect is that we can do other work faster than we would have done before. So when you string them together, the complete ROI starts to actually become more visible.
Okay, Shay, William, we're going to have to leave it there because we're all out of time, unfortunately. But thanks very much indeed. Shay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you so far the quote of the conference, which is education is a useful byproduct of digitization, which I think is lovely. And I know people were very nervous about. People were very nervous about what digitization projects meant for their workforce. Naturally, education's not a bad thing. A couple of quick poll questions for our audience. First of all, did you find this webinar useful? Yes or no? I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to answer that. It's pretty straightforward. Do you find the webinar useful? Yes or no? Click on that. Click on the submit button. One other question I'm going to ask you, which is, does your organization use Office 365? Is that a yes or a no? Again, a couple of questions. 3, 2, 1, hit the submit button. And finally, would you like us to arrange any of the following next steps for you? What we'll do is we'll pass these responses back to the guys so they can get in touch with you. Either a 30-day free trial of FlowForma Process Automation, a free proof of concept, or a free one-to-one demonstration and discussion. Click on whichever one of those you'd like, or I guess all three. I don't suppose Shay will be objecting if you click on all three, and hit the submit button, and they will get back to you. Right, just remains me to say thanks very much to Shay, thank you very much to William, and to remind you, you can download all kinds of things from the resources box, and we'll see you in 15 minutes for our very next session. Thanks for your time, everybody, wherever you are in the world. Goodbye.